Final Fantasy meets Magic the Gathering? Sign me up! Greetings, owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles. We are here today to talk about Japanese Planeswalker action. More specifically, Liliana and an interview with the man who painted her. For those of you who don't know, and I imagine there are very few people who don't know at this point, but just to make sure we're all on the same page, what happened was Wizards of the Coast decided to do special variant editions of all of the Planeswalkers for War of the Spark, specifically for Japanese Magic the Gathering booster boxes, or booster packs. It doesn't necessarily have to be a booster box. The packs are what matters. So, basically what happened was you have a chance in any pack War of the Spark that you open of getting an alternate anime-esque style Planeswalker, and they were done by a number of different artists. Now, Liliana has the distinction of being done specifically by Yoshitaka Amano, who is responsible for Final Fantasy artwork. And there is an interview with him that I think is both insightful and entertaining. The entertaining part comes from the fact that it's originally written in Japanese, and we're going to be using Google's wonky translate to go through it. So there's some hilarious translation issues that make it a chuckle. But before we get into that, let's take a look at the actual Planeswalker card itself, so you know what it looks like and what we're dealing with. So this is Liliana Dreadhorde General. Obviously you can't read that, it's in Japanese here. So we're not really here to talk about the card's abilities or the text or anything. We're here to focus on the artwork, and it's absolutely gorgeous. Honestly, anybody who's familiar with Final Fantasy, you're going to see it and you're going to get that vibe off of it right away. It definitely has his particular style and flair, and I'm genuinely amazed that Wizards of the Coast was able to get him on board to do this artwork. You know what I mean? Like, he is not some lesser. A lot of Magic art is done by lesser known individuals who then gain prominence through their Magic the Gathering artwork, and then sometimes go on to do other projects. I mean, we're going to see something similar, I imagine, with people like Seb McKinnon, because that man is genuinely talented and his artwork is absolutely gorgeous. And I expect at a certain point his relevance and significance is going to grow to the point where he is going to depart from Magic to move on to bigger projects that matter to him more. And that's not diminishing Magic the Gathering in any way. It's just, as an artist, you know, like, doing Magic artwork is one thing, but I imagine there are other things. Like, I doubt too many people, when they start their dreams of being an artist, specifically like, I want to be a Magic artist and only a Magic artist. So I fully expect that at some point Seb McKinnon will move on like some of the other greats, and in the meantime, let us all appreciate what he's done. But we're not here to focus on Seb McKinnon, obviously. We are here for the man. And this Liliana artwork looks absolutely fantastic. Note the skulls in the background of the artwork there as well, because that will tie into this conversation that we're going to have. So this article, which again, I'm reading through Google Translate, so understand that in Japanese, it's going to flow a lot more clearly, but Google Translate hasn't really mastered the art of translating perfectly. So, Wizards of the Coast is today, April 25th, 2019, the latest set of the trading card game Magic the Gathering Carson Wars. But an interview with Yoshitaka Amano, who was in charge of the Japanese version of the art, it was published. I'm reading this as is because for me, I love the translation. It's wonky. In The Great War, that's what War of the Spark is called in this translation. It translates to The Great War, which I love. In The Great War, released on May 3rd, 36 Plain Planes Walker cards, which so far only appeared in about 3 in a set, are scheduled to be recorded. And these art is to be drawn by 28 Japanese artists, including Yoshitaka Amano. This has already been announced on the official site, etc., so there should be lots of fans you know. Each artist draws with its own interpretation that shares only settings without referring to the original, so it can be enjoyed as compared to the original version. So basically, what they're saying is the artists are only given certain pieces of information in regard to the Planeswalker so that they can bring their own iteration, their own interpretation, what they think it should look like. And you can see this when you look at Planeswalkers. We will see the different versions of Teferi that exist and other walkers too. Teferi is just a recent choice, and you can see from artist to artist the different variations. And I mean, things like Fibblethip as well. Fibblethip is blue on his official card, but he's green? Oh no! Oh, the set is Fibblethip. What have you done? Anyways, let us continue on with the article. Amano was in charge of the popular character of Magic the Gathering and Liliana Vess, the protagonist of the Great War. In the interview with Mr. Amano, the background to draw Liliana Vess, the points where he had struggled, and the places where he suffered were frankly talked. So those who are worried about refer to the following release statement want. I love it. I love how wonky it is. All right. Interview with Yoshida Amano, Magic the Gathering times Yoshitaka Amano, miracle collaboration is realized. I love that. Miracle collaboration is realized. It certainly does feel like it. So, Magic the Gathering has announced in the Japanese edition of the Battle of the Great War to be released on May 3rd, the inclusion of 36 pieces of original Japanese art written by some of Japan's leading artists. Above all, the Planeswalker card Liliana Vess, drawn by Yoshitaka Amano, is a must-see. With the release in mind, we asked Mr. Yoshitaka Amano to talk specially. So the first question, how was Amelia-san's Liliana created? How did the image freeze? The beginning is the occasional encounter between Magic the Gathering Liliana and Yoshitaka Amano. Last fall in Kyoto, there is an international conference on manga, anime, and games, which is presided over by Mr. Cedric Bidsky. It is an event from Monaco where artists and creators who are active in the world gather. But I also had a talk with American comic writer Frank Miller, so I was participating. All right, so he was there to be part of a talk with Frank Miller. Some big names. During that event, a show by top cosplayers from Europe, North America, and South America was being held. And I used to shoot a performance that I thought was interesting with a mobile camera. At that time, I was just thinking, I think there are various characters in the world, but among them, it was the most ugly and the performer who was still in the impression. It was a performer from overseas who danced and cosplayed this Liliana I noticed when I was watching the show, but when I was about to get on with this job, I saw the document. Are I? ? The encounter in Kyoto at that time was quite impressive. So, to sum up what's being said here, basically, while he was at this event, there was also a cosplay event going on with cosplayers from Europe, North America, and South America, and he happened to record interesting parts of it with his mobile camera. There was specifically somebody doing a Liliana cosplay, and it caught his eye. So it says, it was a theater in Dazai, but it has appeared on the lighted up stage while dancing with the music. Not only the character, but the scene, including the atmosphere, was strongly input into the head. At that time, the overseas performers had ribs or something, while doing a funny and suspicious dance. I love that. I'm going to reread that line. At that time, the overseas performers had ribs or something, while doing a funny and suspicious dance. The performance was about 5 minutes or so, and it had a bewitching and fascinating atmosphere, such as the feeling of blowing a skull and the like. So in the picture I drew, there are ribs here too? ? All right, so what he's saying here is specifically referencing the Liliana cosplay. The Liliana cosplayer performed for about 5 minutes. They had music and other things to enhance the atmosphere. She had a skull that she was basically doing different things with. I don't know if the blowing on it specifically was right, but either way, she's cosplaying as Liliana. She has a skull as part of her performance, and it really stuck in his mind. He found it really memorable. So as a result, when he was commissioned to do Liliana artwork, he wanted to include something that connected what he saw in the performance to the card. And that's why you can see those skulls in the background of the Liliana artwork. That's why I told you to remember those skulls, because it would come up in the interview. Now, the next question. Please tell me any points you struggled or troubled in drawing Liliana. And the magic drawn by Yoshitaka Amano. What is the gathering? Straight and pure. Straight and pure makes me laugh. In today's in today's climate, that phrase, if it wasn't translated over from Japan, would set off some people's alarm bells. All right. Until now, I haven't had much experience of drawing characters that other people have already drawn, and I've drawn them again. Liliana has already been painted by someone else and has had some pressure. I think that was great because it was an occasional encounter with a live person cosplayer in what I thought I would like to express in that. After all, the character exists even if it draws, so what's the difference that I create by drawing? I think Magic the Illustration of the Gathering is really great for the drawings that each illustrator drew, so I wondered what to do with it. Even if you get too much original, if you don't, it won't be this character. I cannot say well, but the purpose is the same, and I'm trying to get there. It's the same character because it ends up arriving. Magic the Gathering illustration is something that everyone draws straight and pure, so I wanted to draw that way too. It's better not to put out something that seems like your own, but it seems that it's best to do it honestly and honestly. I love the wording of this. So basically, if I'm understanding this correctly, and realize that I am just going off of a Google Translate here, what he's talking about is that it's, in some ways, it's challenging to do artwork like this because what you want to do is you want to bring your own personal style to it, but at the same time, you don't want to deviate too much from what the character's supposed to be. You want to represent them in a way that fans expect. And there's also the pressure of the fact that other people have done this Liliana, and will yours live up to that level? So for me, this is pretty interesting. Even when you're a really well-known, well-respected artist who has just a ton of beloved artwork under your belt, you still have these considerations. Honestly, this interview is making me dig this fellow even more. Next question. Please tell me the charm of Liliana that Mr. Amano felt and the important points for drawing this time again. Liliana is somehow a well-balanced character like Don Picha or a middle-end character on a royal road, isn't it? I feel like that Liliana feels universal, as it has such a feeling whether you go to any world or not. And no matter what world you go to, it does not exist properly. I also felt that there was an atmosphere of the Hollywood actresses of the old 50s and 60s. I feel dignified. I thought that it was great or something Rain. The big American actresses of the 50s and 60s also like myself. Last time I went to Los Angeles, I bought a photo book and a collection of pictures from that time. And when I went to Oregon last fall, I often went to a bookstore. I like the atmosphere that looks like the gorgeous feeling that monochrome films have, so it's not a recent film, it's old. I think Liliana is also the same as famous big actresses who feel a good atmosphere of goods. I love it. I love it. So in this portion, he's talking about how he likes the old school kind of black and white movie stars. He likes the feeling of like the older 50s and 60s actresses. They had a certain level of presence and class, and he has that kind of a feel for Liliana as well. Like she's a regal, dignified kind of woman who carries herself with the same kind of grace of the actresses of the old days. He goes on to say, that's why I didn't mean it, but I decided to draw the part where Liliana's skin appeared this time. Liliana doesn't have so much skin. The face and chest and only the skin there. So how do you express that part? The tattoo also varies depending on the person who draws it. How is it good to put in a lot? There was a thought that I started to draw from the face, but I thought that I would put tattoos on the face, but I could add too much. I drew how I thought it would be fascinating if I wanted to make part of the skin attractive. So in this part, he's talking about Liliana's tattoos that she's got from the devil. You can see them all over her body. He's talking about that Liliana does not have a lot of exposed skin. He's correct. You can really only see from the neck up, and that's about it. She's not wearing any deeply cut. You don't see a ton of her body. Sometimes her arms will be uncovered, but overall, there's not a lot of skin. And he didn't want to do too much with the tattoos on her to overwhelm the artwork. Like too much, and he wanted to make sure that overall the skin portion of her did look nice and was attractive. Continuing onwards, please tell us why you participated in the Japan Original Art Project and what is the impression of Magic the Gathering. Of course, Magic the Gathering knew about taking on this task. Like the most famous American card game in the world, it is the main source of the card games that exist in the world now. It's amazing that more than 20 million people in the world are playing around the world. I thought I could not do anything bad either, and then he laughs. For example, there may be card games even in Final Fantasy, and in that way the illustrations you draw may sometimes become cards, and you may have done. So it's the oldest in trading card games. The world, I thought it was an honor because it's a card game that I loved, that is loved inside. I think that the fantasy world has many worlds, and there is a world in the middle of the Royal Road and its side world. But Magic the Gathering is the home of the home. Origin, that is the origin of card games, in the sense that I feel the impression of the Royal Road. Everyone in the United States also knows it normally. So what he's talking about here is how Magic the Gathering is the biggest card game in the world. It's the origin of all card games. It's loved by many people. And so there's that pressure to get it right. You want to do a good job because this game has a ton of fans. This game has a long lineage, a strong pedigree. And so basically you want to give the game, you want to bring to the table what you feel the game deserves. So he's clearly praising Magic the Gathering very highly here. And he says, I myself are also influenced by American styles such as American comics. Here he laughs again. I love my origin. Originally, I love American comics. Magic the Gathering, like American comics, is closer to the illustrator's world. As an impression of American comics, it draws with a line by all means and has a flat feeling. Magic the Gathering is close to the American comic impression of those days, as for example drawn in Heavy Metal of magazines. It's called American comics closer to the illustration. I really like Richard Coben too. When I was young, he is not a line but a person who paints with real paint and paints. I feel the same atmosphere as the impression of that area from Magic the Gathering. So here he's talking about how Magic the Gathering artwork and style is tied into American comic book styling. There's a very similar impression for him of how both of these work, and that he specifically appreciates people who paint with real paint as opposed to something digital. And the next question, and I believe this is the final part of the interview, please leave a message for Magic the Gathering player who is looking forward all over the world. So please, a message for fans who are looking forward to this artwork. From Liliana, I drew this time. I feel the presence of we will lead this world, or reign. You'll feel like you're the one who plays the stage alone. I drew that. I thought it would be good if I could show that kind of strength and presence. If you're a fan of this card, she has a lot of control over the world, so in that way I hope you won't lose to anyone. After that, please don't hesitate. Grandly. Because this Liliana will be forgiven for anything. It's okay to be selfish. It's nice to be selfish while having kindness. Reign in the world with Liliana. So basically he's talking about how Liliana has a very regal feel to her, and also when you're playing the game, you are like a lord and god. You are one who plays the stage alone. It is focused on you. You are the planeswalker. So I enjoy this, honestly. I mean, obviously it's not going to give you the exact same impression as if we sat down and had like the ability to read Japanese and could read it properly, but I kind of feel like the translation gives it its own flavor and quirks, and adds for a couple of chuckles. So I hope that you enjoyed this the same way that I did. Speaking of things that I enjoy, I want to show a couple of pictures of people who've ordered my merch and are now out in the world wearing shirts with my phrase on it. It makes me really happy. I've got a couple here to show you that were sent in. We've got one from Alan Morgan and another one from Bo Falcon. We'll put them both here up on the screen. Look at these boys. Don't they look great? Don't they look great in their official historian merchandise? You can find it at the bottom of the video. Take a look. Get you some. All right, so last thing to do is to roll the golden scroll. The people have my back on Patreon or through channel memberships. Thank you very much for supporting my channel. I appreciate it. For some unknowable reason, YouTube has removed like hundreds of dollars worth of my income off the projected income for this month. I have no idea why they took it from me. So thanks for backing me in these other ways, boys. It definitely helps. Boys and girls, got to admit, I've got men and women on my glorious scroll. So thanks for being here, friends. Thanks for doing what you do. I am out of here. I am history, baby.